Well, this week's modeling tip, managing editor David Popp is going to show us how to make waves on the MR&T. And David, could you describe some of your techniques, please?
Sure, Cody. Let's get started.
All right.
Well, Cody, we've been working on this section of the MR&T for quite some time now, and most of what you see here will appear in the November issue of the magazine in the step-by-step column. But in the last week, I've finished up building the riverbed and putting all of the rocks and the other detail into the bottom of it. We poured the resin. Did the first pour on Friday last week, and we started this week with another pour to give it some depth. But we used a two-part resin from Unreal Details called Magic Water. It's a nice product. We've used it before for other things. But we have a nice, smooth, glassy surface now, and the thing is that rivers tend to have flowing water and have wind effects on them and everything else. So we need to give the smooth surface a little bit of a ripple. We don't want too much for this because we've got all that nice detail on the bottom we don't want to obscure. But anyway, I'm using a project called Water Effects from Woodland Scenics. This is a great, easy-to-use product. It's a paste that you just squeeze onto the surface that you're going to work on and brush it in. So let me show you how it works. The first thing we'll do is we'll apply some of the water effects directly to the surface of the water. Depending on how thick you want the waves to be will depend on how much you use. We're going to start out with a small amount. And next I'm going to take a 1/2-inch paintbrush, and we're just going to use a stippling motion to start creating a ripple. Now, because this is a fairly calm portion of the river, I don't want a heck of a lot of waves on it, so we're going to stipple this down until the waves are fairly small. But if I were working on a harbor scene, you probably need to apply multiple layers of this material, and rather thickly too, in order to get the types of waves that would be more appropriate for that. All right, the product goes on white, but it will dry nice and clear in a couple of hours, and then we'll be able to see what type of ripple effect we've wound up with. Now, I've done this little portion here. I'm going to continue on this other side, but let me show you some other things you can do with this. I've got a rapids that I'm working on the around the corner here on the river, so let's go over there. On this part of the river here, I had 2 layers of magic water at 2 different heights, because actually this end of the layout over here is higher than that end, and so since it's a self-leveling product, we needed to keep it on that side. So we had built a small little dam out of caulk, and now that the material is dry on either side, we're actually disguising the lip here to look like a rapids. So what I'll do is put in another layer of water effects right along the edge. And then I'll use my paintbrush to just carefully shape it into the space here. Make it look like the water is pouring over the rocks and the pieces of wood here that are hanging out of the side. Again, this will all dry into a nice clear consistency, but in this case, we're going to probably want to take and paint it with a little white paint. Give it some white caps, make it look like white water. All right, that looks pretty good. We'll let that dry, and we'll evaluate whether we need one more layer or not, but I think we're pretty close to being there. One other thing you can do with the water effects material is you can make it look like trails, where there may be something just below the surface of the water that has created ripples. So here we have a little rock that's just below the surface of the water, and you can see we've just used the water effects to make a trail across the back, but the surrounding area here is all left nice and smooth.
Wow, David, this looks really great.
Yeah, the Water Effects is a great product for making waves on your model railroad.
Terrific. So next time you have a water project on your layout, give Woodland Scenics Water Effects a try.